Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on October 23rd, 2022 at approximately 5:55 p.m. PST. I figured I'd do something. I've done it before, but I figured I'd look at quite literally a day. This is just simply about the process of creative writing. Okay, now as you well know, let's see if we got this here. As most of you well know, and if you don't, well, here we are. This is the Yldrbacian Chronicles. This is the birth of the Wolfpack, which is in truth the 10th book in a 12-volume saga. Now, obviously, it's already in print. Okay. Then we have this one, which is to say is the sequel to the first. Okay. This is the end of an epoch. Now, I'm already about 2/3 of the way through writing the next one, okay, which will be the Return to Paradise. Now, this whole thing started when I was in grade 10, okay, when I was asked to write a story outline. And when I wrote the outline, my teacher turned around and she looks at it and she goes, "Do you have any idea what you wrote?" I says, "Yeah, I wrote a story outline. Now, granted, it's going to take several volumes to write it." Okay. And she goes, "No, well, yes, but what you wrote was an epic poem." Now, that epic poem, okay, I says, "What is that?" And she goes, "It's something that hasn't been taught since the middle 18th century. Now, in the birth of the Wolfpack, and for that matter, in the end of an epoch, okay, is in the first appendix. I believe it's the first appendix. Should be anyway. But go all the way to the birth of to the appendix itself. No, it's not even the first appendix. It's actually before it. How did I title it other than the story? Okay. Right after the story itself, there is this poem right here. That is the entire outline that I started with to write the first 8 books. Now, that being said, the book 9, which won't come out for probably close to a decade at this point, bear in mind there are 10 more books to come out before we get to it. Nope, that's not true. 9 more and then it. Okay, so we're probably looking at close to a decade. But what I turned around and did was I sat back, and rest assured, this was not how I intended things to go. I never really planned much out with it. But here I am at 59 years old, 54 years later. I've got 2 of the books in print, and I'm working on the rest of them. Now, it started when I first took a look at the story. Okay, when I first took a look at the outline, I started off with a story that literally took creationism, evolution, magic, technology, humans, off-world races, and ancient races. Ancient races being your elves, dwarves, the minotaurs, your unicorns, all of these things that you consider mythology. Okay, mythology or fantasy. Okay, it took religion and spiritualism and put all of it under one roof. Okay, now I've done my best to bring this all to bear in an interesting fashion. Now, of course, understanding I wrote that I wrote that in grade 10. That would have been about the same year I got into gaming. Okay, now I got into gaming, into playing Dungeons and Dragons when I was 13 years old. My apologies. Got into playing Dungeons and Dragons at 13. By the time I was 15, I had this storyline laid out, and it came into bearing. Okay, now there is that neat little question of did my experiences bring about the story, or did the story bring about my experiences? And that's an excellent question. I love it personally. Now, what I ended up doing with taking these different concepts, quite by accident, when I got on to when I got on to Dave Scott's spaced out radio on the internet. And I believe it's on terrestrial radio, and don't ask me what channels because I just don't know. But I got on talking to him. And the next thing I knew, I was getting asked for all kinds of information about these ancient races I've been dealing with anyway. Nightmare, welcome aboard. So what ended up happening is I put together this neat little book. This one here that some of you already have. As a matter of fact, some of you already have the Birth of the Yldrbac. This is a reference manual containing 59 different races I personally have interacted with. And this is why I said it's a question of whether this came about because of my experiences, or did my experiences bring this about? You get to decide on that. So I turned around, and in that storyline, I've combined the whole 9 yards. And net result, what has happened is I've ended up going through various different aspects and combining different aspects of reality. Now, here's the funny part about it. I talk about treating quite regularly. If you've listened to me at all, I talk about the dangers that society is going through right now. This issue of lack of humanity. The issue of we're not respecting each other. Now, the group in the Birth of the Yldrbac, needless to say, they're called the Yldrbac. This whole group is a group of people from various walks of life that work together and using their different talents and what have you. They come about to try and make the world a better place for virtually everybody. Now, needless to say, there are certain conflicts. I personally have a major problem with bullies. I personally have a major complication where it comes to the different, to people being treated in an unfair fashion. And I've always been fascinated by languages. Now, as you can tell, much as English is my first language, I still stumble over it a lot. So I took all of this into consideration, and something you have to understand about every one of the characters that are in these stories, or virtually every one of them. The primary characters are characters that were built, that were either designed by gamers or by myself. The primary characters are designed by different gamers, and no, I'm not going to tell you who they are. Some of you some of you, more to the point, the people that built the original characters will know who they are. And just to be clear, if you take a look at my gaming crews, when you look at the beginning of the Yldrbacian Chronicles, it tells you who my gaming crews were by first name. And those characters and those players built some of the characters I'm working with. In all fairness, some of them built more than one of the characters. And if you're wondering what I'm doing right now, I've got this whole package of figures I'm working on, but I've got to sort it out while I'm doing it. And this is why I said this is essentially a day in the life at the same time. So each of the main characters in the Yldrbacian Chronicles was developed by a different individual. Every one of them was. But it was because of the enjoyment I had at the gaming table, combined with the enjoyment I had spending time with the actual players, that I ended up getting these characters developed as well as I did. Now, virtually every character that is in these stories, virtually every one of them, is based on somebody that it's either somebody that I've run into or an experience I've personally gone through. Now, that gets to be a little complicated when you think of this. When I talk about it being based on people that I know, some of these people live centuries ago. Okay, because we have to remember, on top of all of this, I still remember my past life. I still have many past life memories. Okay, so what I ended up doing was putting all of this together into one storyline to see where it went from there. Now, of course, I've got all these neat little figures I'm working on. Some of them I'll show you in a little while. Okay, but because of the fact that I spend so much time talking to people and about various different things, and there is such chaos right now, my outlook on it is this. I've got 12 books, 12 novels that I desire to have written before I die. Okay. Now, let's face it, I'm 59. I'm not likely to live forever, but, okay, I do have a new goal in mind, in a manner of speaking. Actually, the goal was to reach at least 137. Okay. Right now, I just found out that the oldest confirmed living person, made it to 122. Now, I remember about 20 years ago reading about a black gentleman that lived to 149. Personally, I always looked at it as 137 is a nice solid number, because that's what it would take for me to make it to the 22nd century. Okay, bearing in mind I was born in 1963. So I do have my goals in mind. And now what I'm looking at is, okay, how do we get these all together? That should say active. It does. So I'm going to take some of these characters I'm working with and get them back into the bin so I know who they are. Okay. And that should solve that problem. And when you know it, it did. Now, the nice little part about it from my end is this. I've already had that neat little experience of being diagnosed dead. Okay. So in the storyline right now, I started it off because of the fact that I happen to be a gamer and I had so much fun with a particular gaming system called Aftermath. Okay. That I started off with book 10. Okay, with the first book that came out, The Birth of the Wolfpack. I started it off simply with the primary protagonist, Jeremiah, who, by the way, I personally built. Okay, I started him off in a bar, in Casey's Bar and Grill. I didn't honestly know how the story was going to write. Yeah, I really didn't know how it was going to go. Okay, so I sat down and it just wrote itself for all intents and purposes. It wasn't until I was about 3 chapters from the end of it that I went, okay, I've got to bring this to a close because it's just going to go on forever. So I went, okay, let's tie it off. And I know I'm going to end up with a sequel and probably a prequel. At this point, I still hadn't got to the rest of the point of putting it all together. So while I'm writing it, I end up connecting with the young lass, and she took a look at the storyline I had and went, this sounds like more of an autobiography than anything else. And it brought to mind the fact that this original storyline way back in book 10 was still sitting there. So, way back in grade 10. So, of course, what I turned around and did was this. I turned around and went, okay, The Birth of the Wolfpack, which is post-apocalyptic, can come after the end of this poem. Okay. It can come after the fall of mankind. Good afternoon, Chad. Glad you could make it. So I tagged it in there. And of course, what's going to happen is I've got The Birth of the Wolfpack written, the end of an epoch. Then I'm in the middle of writing of writing Return to Paradise, then I'm going to turn around and go back to book 1, to where it all began, and start over. Now, right now, I've already got the characters dealing with this idea of taking a look at bullies, taking a look at people that are creating a problem and working together to bring the problem to a close. Okay, it's all interlocked with flashbacks and dreamscapes for future foretellings. Okay, it's all really tied up in a bit of a problem, in a bit of a complex method. Okay, so what I ended up doing was I got those written down, and then went, how do I go from here? How do I get from where I am to where I desire to be? Well, I'll tell you, it is a major process. Now, here's the thing. While I was going through the starting point of all this, I found out something rather remarkable. Okay, that remarkable thing was this. I turned around and I heard somebody, quite literally, I heard Gene Simmons, the lead singer from Kiss. He was doing a TV show for a while called Gene Simmons Family Jewels. And he said one thing that struck absolutely true to my heart. As he's talking away, just when I was scanning through the channels, he leans into it and he says, look, for all of you that are creative, there is a major misconception here. Now, of course, in all fairness, I'm paraphrasing. And he goes, there's a major misconception here. The misconception is that reading, the creative work is 90% inspiration and 10% perspiration. Okay. And he says what it is in reality is it is 10% inspiration and 90% perspiration. Now, of course, for any of you out there that are running podcasts, okay, better than a lot of people, and anybody in the creative industry really does figure it out. It takes a lot of planning, a lot of thinking ahead of time in order to make something happen. And I'm sitting there listening to this and I'm thinking, he couldn't be more right. When I wrote The Birth of the Wolf Pack, it just wrote itself. The end of an epic was a little bit more complicated. But when I got into the middle of writing The Return to Paradise, I found out something absolutely remarkable. Okay. There is so much more work involved in keeping that story, in keeping the third installment, in keeping it true to itself and true to the whole book, the whole saga, as well as interlocking it. I am having major problems. This is what slowed things down. You couple that with the problems I had with marketing and what have you, which brings me to the other point. Okay, where it comes to the other point of this, I turned around and figured out that, all of this marketing, all of that was a major problem. But I do have somebody building a website for me. Now, I currently have what amount to, well, I'm not sure how well they're going to work, but I've got rkeithandrews.com and I've got Yldrbac.com. Okay. And I've got somebody building an Amazon store for me now. Now, of course, I've also got my Facebook page, LinkedIn, Twitter. I have not gotten around to getting a thing on Instagram yet, but I probably should be doing that. Okay. So I turned around and looked at this and went, okay, maybe now I can get things moving forward, but we're about to find out. Because I should be getting a call sometime this week. Think it'll be sometime this week. It might be sometime next week, where they'll have my Amazon bookstore up and running. Okay. Where everything will be done directly to my specifications. And of course, any book coming off of my website directly will be signed. Okay. Because I handle all the printing on my own end. They all will be signed. They all will end up, with that component. which anywhere else you won't be able to get them signed. Okay. They will also be, because of the way that I did them, and this is something I'm extremely sticky on. Okay. And the only way, because I'm in control of what's going on this end, if I take a look at these, if you look at the back book, at the back pages, okay, they're not 100% locked, but, welcome to my hands. They link together to make a major collage. Okay. And the same thing applies to the spine. They're designed to make one collage. Okay, and we'll see how all that comes together. Now the nice part about it with the various different books that are written, okay, and with the Race of the Worlds. Now the Races of the Worlds has all it literally is a reference manual of 69 races I've personally dealt with. It gives you data on societies, on their outlooks, on their appearances and what have you. In the Yldrbacian Chronicles, many of those races are brought to life, where you'll see the social interactions and their personalities start to come to bear. Okay, so of course I've got that, and then I've got this other neat little trick that I'm pulling off, where I've got these little figures that I work with. Okay, and that's something else that I'm working on, because I pick a figure to simply help me create the battle sequences and the conversations that are taking place in the writing. It just helps bring it a little bit more to focus. Okay, now these are stories that are written with a very graphic component to them. Okay, I don't write adult stories. Okay, adult as in the intimate side of what's going on. I don't touch them. I don't write horror. I don't write, at least I don't think I write suspense. You get to figure that one out. Okay, I certainly don't write the adult or the horror. Okay, but I do write rather graphically. So what I'm doing now, okay, I got these figures all sorted out. Now I get to move around a little because, well, I gotta get things organized here, sort of. And primarily, if I don't move around a little, I end up, well, with my back locking and that sort of thing. Not necessarily an enjoyable setup. But if you take a look at this, okay, this stack of papers of files. Okay, if you take a look at that stack of files, this is all hard copy. Okay, that I've got to go through and make sure it's all covered. In the meantime, I've got these different little figures I've got to get out of the way. These are ones, some of these I've painted, some of them I have not. Okay, and we'll get to those in a little bit. But I take a look at these stories, and I go, how can I make them as realistic, as engrossing as possible? How can I help the person feel that they are part of the event? Now, of course, the real catch is this, and for those of you that have podcasts that are writing books, that are getting into a music career, anything on the creative side, for those of you that are involved in those, that was an annoying noise. For those, sorry, that was an interesting noise on my end. Okay. For those of you that are involved in these, like I said, it is a lot of work. Now, I'm just going to bring this up. I finally figured out how to be able to see what's going on here. And I just have to make sure when I bring it up that I can shut down the volume on it. And coming up and running right off the bat. That's always handy. There. Now I've got my extra screen up that I wanted there. So what I've done is I've got this whole story up here. Okay. Now I was really fortunate. about 4 years ago, maybe 5, I managed to track down my English teacher from grade 10. The neat part about it was she was still teaching English, and I got her go ahead, to actually include her name, to include a tribute to her by name. Because I'll tell you, if it weren't for her, if it weren't for my grade 10 English teacher, and in all fairness, my grade 9 one, I would not have been writing today. Okay, but it was really the grade 10 one that really pushed the button open. So what I did was I've got all these stories on the go and I'm wrapping them up. Now, the neat part, the one thing that I was looking for the longest time, okay, I knew I had written a section. There is one part in these stories, and it's way down the road at this point, okay, where Jeremiah ends up on a space station. Oh, that's what the noise was. Where Jeremiah ends up on a space station. Now, there is a rational reason for it. It's part of the evolution of the storyline. But I'll tell you, it was really a pain in the neck. Because what had happened was I kept going through the hard copy, through the soft copies, as in what was written on the computer. And I couldn't find the storyline. So I went through it time and again through the soft copy. While I was going through, now I've talked to people about the importance of getting rid of the junk in your house. So I'm going through an old file. Okay. I was going through an old box of files. And I turned around and lo and behold, the baseline story, okay, of the whole space station setup. Which, in all fairness, is a pretty big part of book 8. Okay, between book 7 and book 8. But I found the hard copy. So when I'm done this video, I will be taking this hard copy before it goes missing again and get it copied into soft copy. Okay, in other words, taking it from paper to the computer. Now, first draft is usually written on paper, which is why when I'm going through this, okay, this particular, there it is. This particular book I've shown you before. At least if you've seen us before. This particular book is the hard copy for the Return to Paradise. Okay, and a lot of it has already been moved on to soft copy. But once I get the hard copy done, putting it on the computer enables me to go through it and really start fleshing it out. When I first wrote The Birth of the Wolfpack, okay, I just wrote it as quick as it came out. It was 250 pages long. Then I went back and expanded and enhanced it. By the time it was done, it was 392. Okay. I'm right now in the process of doing all of this at the same time with the Return to Paradise. Okay, so there's a lot that goes on. And of course, because of the fact that I'm also writing, because I'm writing all 12 of the books in the saga at the same time. Okay, what I've ended up doing is putting an Excel spreadsheet together. And if I could get my mouse to work, that'd always be nice. Ended up putting a Excel spreadsheet together so I can actually track when the people come out, first show up in which book, and as much about them as I can get away with. Because when all of this is said and done, there will be a compendium coming out as well. Now, as you can well imagine, this is a very involved process. Now, I don't know if this is normal for most people. This is normal for me. Okay, so I've got the 12-volume saga. I'll have the compendium, which I don't know how thick it's going to be. I can tell you it's got a lot of information in it. I don't know how much. I don't know much about it right now. There is also another book coming out that is also tied to it. Again, it won't be able to come out until after The Birth of the Wolfpack, or until after the 12th book, essentially book 9, which is a Great Collapse. Now, the neat part about it is once the Great Collapse comes out, within a couple of months, I'll be able to bring out Jeremiah's journal. Okay, because with that one, I'll be able to go through it and just it'll all be built beforehand, and I'll just have the one little bit that I'll have to do, and then pop it into print. Okay, and of course, the compendium has to come out. It will have to come out likely after that, although I'm not entirely certain, probably after that. But the compendium is only on the 12 books. Okay, as you can see, there is a lot more to it. When you're striving to write, there's a lot more planning to it than what many people realize. And this is why some people will you'll get a story written, and all of a sudden you'll stop. Now, because of the fact, and I've talked to people about this before, everything is connected. So what did I turn around and do? I turned around and went, okay, I've got some short stories that I wrote years ago in class, some poems and some poems, some songs. They're all being brought, not all of them, but I'm bringing some of these different aspects into this storyline. Okay, because it literally all meshes together really nicely. Now, the neat part about it from my end is I started this when I was 15. I am now seeing this at 59 coming to fruition. Now, I'll tell you, if you want, when you're looking for what you should be doing in life, first and foremost, there is no should be. There is what you choose to do, what you've got a real draw to. For me, I wake up thinking, how can I enhance this storyline? How can I make it a little bit more effective? Okay, how can I bring it to life a little bit more with a little more excitement? And I'll tell you, that can be a challenge. Because when I first wrote The Birth of the Wolf Pack, when I first wrote it, every other chapter had a major fight in it. Okay, then I fleshed it out. Okay, now I don't honestly recall how many chapters were in it to start with, but it ended up, and I think it was like 15, 18 chapters to start with, but I really don't know. One day maybe I'll go back and look for it. Okay, to figure out how many were there in the beginning. Okay, but in the beginning, like I said, there were only 250 pages. When you're striving to do something of a creative nature, get it focused in your own head what you desire it to look like. What is the overall goal? Okay, and once you've got that overall goal sorted out, then you can get to putting it together. At least that's how I did it. Okay, I came up with the goal. I've got this massive saga to write. Now, how do I go about doing it? Well, right now I'm approaching 30% complete for the entire saga. The one trilogy that I'm just getting ready to tie off is right now, if I look over here, it is 56% complete. Okay. And I'm talking in terms of the estimated word count. I've got two areas in life that I look at. Okay. Aside from from making your home run properly. Okay. I've got the Yldrbacian Chronicles, and of course, I've got my stuff that I deal with regarding alien technologies, alien races, alien civilizations. Okay, and either one of these, I'm quite willing to talk to people about. In my opinion, I'm reasonably versed in them. I am by no means an expert. I see these people put out a master class in this, that, and the other thing. Don't hold your breath waiting for me to put out a master class. This is about as close to it as I get. Okay. Now, if I take a look at this, let's see. If I take a look at the way I've got things set up right now, I know, and these are a critical issue for me, these three bundles. Okay. are a very important little factor. Okay, because these have that one storyline. I've been trying to figure out what I did with it, and it's absolutely going to end up being dealt with today, which is why I'm opening this right now. Okay, move that out of the way. Now I'm going to be looking down below. Okay, because the video is, the screen I have to see is up there, but down here is where I can find the different stories themselves. And so I know I've got to have book 7 up. Well, I might just as well get them all up and running. Okay. So this one, yeah, that is necessary. But what did I just do here? See, when I'm working on these, I turn around and get all... Okay, there's a lot of information I have to deal with. I mean, if you think about it, at 400 pages per volume, I'm looking at a real simple situation. I'm looking at approximately 4,800 pages that I'm going to have to write. Now, let's see. If I take book 7, we end up with 5, 6, 7 goes there. And I'll move that. I've actually got 4 monitors on this computer, which is why I can get things done the way I've got them. So that's book 7 up because I'm going to require it. And like I said, with this setup, I'm looking at like approximately, there are going to be approximately 400 pages per book. Okay, meaning 100,000, and roughly 100,000 words. So with that in mind, in the Return to Paradise, I've already got 247 pages written with 56,446 words, aka about 56% of the storyline for the Return to Paradise is already written. I'd show you the cover work for it, but unfortunately I don't know how to do that yet. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is getting that posted. Well, I've got to start posting things on Facebook and what have you, just to let you see where they're going. So I've got book 7 open there. Now, if we open book 8, that's book 7, yeah. And then we open book 8 up. Wait for it to pop up so I can work with it. There it is. And it's always fun trying to get these to work because I'm trying to get technology to do what I desire it to do, which doesn't always cooperate. Okay, but that's 7 and 8 that are absolutely imperative today. Okay, there are neat little things that you look at. I take a look at the one big issue that really, really concerns me with today's world. Okay, and that is that so many people are not paying attention to what has happened in the past. Okay, there's no saying that goes, those that don't know history are doomed to repeat it. Well, there's a flip side to that. And that is that those that focus on history also have a tendency of repeating it. Now, right now, society is going down a really neat path. Well, I'll use the term neat a little loosely. Right now, society is tearing itself apart. People are finding new and exciting ways to really find differences between themselves instead of finding ways to work together. And with the Yldrbacian Chronicles, I'm constantly working with this concept as well. Getting people to actually function, to actually find the better side of each other. Okay, there is no question we are all unique individuals. Every one of us is a unique individual. Problem is that people are separating themselves so badly now that it's creating an added complication. Okay, that added complication is that it's making people forget, or encouraging people, is more to the point, to forget just exactly how life works. Okay, and net result, we have, the human race, the human genome has two. And now, when I was growing up, and biology is pretty much the same. When you're looking at a binary system, you have two genders. Okay, modern doctors all of a sudden have come up with a brilliant idea. Never mind this idea of I don't identify as. I just watched or looked into an article where modern doctors are claiming I have now identified 5 genetic differences. Okay, now unfortunately, what they did is create a very big problem. Okay, because we look at the differences between people. Okay, and we look at the different ways that people treat each other. If you start isolating the different genders into that many, okay, and you start going, people are all essentially the same way inclined. When you do that, you've got an interesting problem. Okay, but modern doctors are now putting out what I consider dangerously misleading information. Okay, like for instance, and we have to remember that all of society is not identical. There are differences. Now, in the Yldrbacian Chronicles, okay, I deal with a number of things, not the least of which is the Yldrbacian race. And I've talked to you about the Yldrbacians before on some of the other programs I've been on. Okay, but what I've done with these ones is turned around and said, okay, we've got not everybody is going to agree. Even in a star-spanning civilization, not every race, every member of a race is going to agree on the same course of action. There's going to be complications. This is why we have wars and problems with religion in today's world, is because these differences exist. So in the Yldrbacian Chronicles, I have the race. I brought the Yldrbacians into play. Very aggressive race, but they are also very much, they have their own conflicts and what have you, and some of them have turned away from the antagonistic approach of the primary antagonist, which is Yldrbac. Okay. Some of the Yldrbacians have turned away from him to join the protagonist side, to join the defense of the peoples. Now, this is against their racial norm, if you will. Okay, but this is how civilization evolves. This is why, when we're talking to each other, we absolutely have to find a way to be straightforward, to really focus on opening doors and helping people understand the positive side of what's going on. Understand the strength that working together, we can, as a society, turn this into a proper, prosperous civilization. And I know that it's going to take an awful lot of work. Not everybody is going to agree with it by any stretch. Okay, but then not everybody agrees with what I talk about anyway. Okay, I do not have a functional way of saying, here's the proof, except take a look at history. Don't take my word for it. Okay, do not take my word for it. Do your own research as best you can. The Roman Empire did not fall apart because everybody decided, oh, the Dark Ages were a good idea. Okay, it fell apart because the wealthy and the people in political positions were treating people in a poor fashion. That eventually the civilization said, no, we're not dealing with it anymore. Okay, and this is essentially how things evolve from my standpoint. Okay, now, of course, right now, in case you're wondering, what I'm doing is because I'm going to be doing an awful lot of writing tonight when I get done with this video, with this stream. I figured, what the heck? Let's put things together. But what we've got to realize is that if we are going to change this world, and the Yldrbacian Chronicles is simply a story that talks about that side of it. How do we go about changing the world, changing the path civilization is on, in order to bring it out of this tumultuous period, in order to develop a way that the society can evolve. And that has slowed down the writing of the end of, or of the Return to Paradise. It has absolutely slowed it down. Because while I am writing that aspect, I'm having to do a little bit of research and find out where the key factors were. Where the key factors of collapse have come from. Now, where did book 12 go? That's always fun. Yeah, looking for book 12 here. Because somewhere in here, that's book 1. That's not what I need. There it is. Okay, right now, and I'll get the other 6 done while I'm at it. But what I'm looking for is what has gone wrong. Well, I can tell you this. One of the big things that has really gone wrong. Okay, let's bring that down so I can quit looking way up in the air and look forward. Okay, one of the big things that has really gone wrong with society is we've gone back to this whole idea that we can treat each other poorly and still have a functional world. It doesn't work that way. Okay, every time somebody has come up with the idea that they were better than everybody else, it created a major, major complication. Okay, so what I'm looking at right this moment, okay, is I've got 6 out of my 12 books up and ready to go. And when I get to writing this afternoon, like once I'm done this, I will be tying things off and a bunch of it dealt with, really focusing on getting hard copy moved to soft copy, but making sure I know where it is. And this is, for me, this is all part and parcel of a major project. Okay, the idea of helping people understand that where our life is, where things are standing, okay, we have an incredible opportunity here. We can start to where we can work together. We can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Okay, this is just one of those things that I look at. Okay, I am in the process of laying out the groundwork for a massive healing center. Now, this is way down the road and is going to require a staggering amount of money. Whether I'll pull it off or not, who knows? But I'm going to lay it out. I'm going to talk about things. And the thing is this. If it is done correctly, when I'm talking about a healing center, okay, I'm talking about a place where people can learn, where they can be taught how to, they can be guided how to think, not what to think. Okay, you were gifted with free will. You were gifted with freedom of choice. But the question is, do you actually have the right to make a decision for anybody else? Absolutely not. What you don't have, by the way, is freedom from consequence. That's just the reality of it. Now, when I'm looking at this, okay, I'm looking at this entire saga, and I really didn't know what I was going to be looking at, aside from the fact it is a very complicated, very drawn out system. Okay, now move that over there so I can get the rest of these up, because I couldn't see the other parts of the other books I needed up and running. Okay, and let's see, book 4. So book 4 gets moved up here. I've got 6 other books I actually have to open up here. And, of course, my mouse is going to move slower than molasses in January. But, whoop, that shouldn't have gone there. That one belongs over here on this monitor. Like I said, I've got 4 monitors up and running. You're sitting on my side monitor, which is why you're looking at the side of my head half the time. Okay, because I've got the other monitors I have to look at in order to get things organized. There's book 4, and then we look at book Okay, we bring up book 5 and let it pop in. And book 5 gets moved over here. You know, the nice part about it is I'm going to end up with all these things up and running. And then I get to go to work writing and trying to making certain that it all fits together. There's book 5, and then we go for 6, which is right here. So it's coming along quite nicely from that end. But again, this is why I said when we're talking about the creative process, it is 90% perspiration, 10% inspiration. You know, I get up in the morning, I'm constantly thinking about this whole storyline, the whole saga that I'm working with. Okay. Like I'm constantly looking at the whole thing and striving to figure out how to make it more of a draw. You know, how to make it more entertaining while I'm working on it. And it doesn't always work the way I'd like it to, but what the heck. So there is book 6, which is now where it belongs. Okay, so what I've got here is 8 of my books up and running up here. Now to put the other 3 in. Which means we take book 3, let it come up into the light. And then once I get done this, I'm going to explain the other part of all of this. Because I just need these up so I know that I'm ahead of the game. Okay, book 3 goes down there. Now we take a look at please tell me that was book 3. That was. Good. And book 2, which comes up, and there's book 2. That's always nice. So book 2 goes there. And then we come down in here and we find book 1. Now, book 1, the nice little part about book 1, where it all began. I'm dealing with things like soulmates, and the twin flames, soul families, reincarnation. It all gets covered, at least in point form. Okay, now that I've got all those up and running, I can take this and bring it over here. Okay, and set this one up on the smaller monitor where it can sit there, and I can bring up, where is the other one? The other one is, come on, thank you. Okay, yes, I was looking all over the place. And now I've got that where I need it. So this one can be blown up properly. And there we have all of the books up and running, everything that I require to make things happen. Okay, but the creative process, and bear in mind, I'm building a world, an entire saga that is designed to cover all the way from creation through the age of man to the return to paradise, where we go back to what many people may call Eden. Okay, where people are returning back to that opportunity. Now, the neat part about it is I've already got books lined up to write after this series. So, am I going to stop writing anytime soon? Clearly not. Now, let us not forget, that's only 14 books. I've got 30 that I'm in the middle of writing all at the same time. And all of these, as I get them popped up, I will put them out. I will put them onto my website. They will be available directly through me. Okay. Of course, if you look at the bottom of this video, okay, and any of the videos I've done, you'll find a whole list of ways of getting a hold of me. A whole list of different contact processes. Absolutely reach out to me. Okay, if you've got a question in quite literally any field, come right out and ask. Okay, and I've mentioned this many times when I've been on R. Keith Andrews, the ET Connection on Spaced Out Radio. Okay, I've mentioned this many times. If you've got a question in any field at all, ask. I may not have the answer, because Lord knows I don't have all the answers. But if I don't have the answer, I'll at least be able to say, hey, have you looked down this road to talk to somebody in this field? Okay, that much I can do. The only thing I will absolutely guarantee to anybody is I will not lie to you to make you feel better. Now, I'm going to sidetrack for just half a second just because my mind does that. Okay, these two books here, which are not connected to the Yldrbacian Chronicles. This one, Mr. Dreamcatcher, is a children's story that I actually wrote. I actually wrote it because of the fact that I got fed up reading the same stories, the same ones you did, in all likelihood. Dr. Seuss, the Berenstain Bears, these sorts of things. I got tired of reading the same ones to my son. So I rattled off this story. Okay, rattled off this one. It's a children's story. Okay, complete with illustrations. Now, pardon my artwork, but the artwork is done by me. Okay, so pardon the artwork, but there you have it. Okay, these two books were written, this was written after the fact. That's Mr. Dreamcatcher Returns. Okay, now you'll notice with Mr. Dreamcatcher, starts out that way, there's Mr. Dreamcatcher Returns. Well, here's how you know they're linked. Okay, is if we go in here, when Mr. Dreamcatcher actually wakens, here he is to start with. Okay, as you saw on the front cover. Okay, and then we go in a couple of pages, maybe only one for all I know. Nope, following page. Then he wakes up, and here we have Mr. Dreamcatcher himself. So as you can see, there's a pretty big similarity between the two. Okay. So those two are children's books. Okay, I'm still looking for the third copy, and the fact that I found there's a third book in this series, I may have to rewrite it and just keep the idea in mind. But just like with these, just like with this hard copy, it was done on hard copy, and I don't know if I ever did it on soft copy. Okay, but I'm still looking through paperwork. Hopefully I'll find it. And then I've got these ones here. This one being the backbone to how I turned my life around. Okay, believe in yourself and follow your dreams. Okay, followed by believe in your business and follow your dreams. Now I've got 10 others in this setup that I'm also working on. Okay, not the least of which is spirituality and success. Okay, I found a formula where it comes to success that applies to literally everybody. Okay, doesn't matter what walk of life you come from. I found an absolute formula that will work for literally everybody. But that said, it is still up to you to take the time and pick the tools up. Now, I will tell you, these are tools that I personally use and that I've shared with literally hundreds of people, in many cases, thousands of people that I work with. This is why I call myself a spiritual guide and a paranormal adept. Because, in my opinion, if I'm going to give you a tool to work with, like what I've been talking about regarding my writing here. Okay, if I'm going to talk about these tools and say these work, I had best be making certain I personally am using them. Okay, which is why I've got them available. Okay, because I repeat this information so often to various different people that it becomes a little bit of a challenge. Now, I know right now that many of the people, I knew full well when I came on today that I was going to run back and run into other situations. Okay. And I just about screwed myself up there because I am right now at 5 to 7 Pacific. Okay. Now, I'm only going to be on here for another half an hour, probably an hour. Okay, because I still have to go and deal with dinner. But when I started looking at this whole thing, it's like, okay, there are ways to be successful, but the trick to being successful is to decide what you desire to accomplish. Now, the reality of it is, for me, am I willing to step forward and, talk to people on the radio, in person? Absolutely. Now, with the way the world is changing here, and I'm just throwing it out there, if I get an invitation to go to I think it's Las Vegas next year, if I get an invitation to come down to actually participate in the show down there, will I come down in person to speak, assuming that the conferences are open, that the borders are open? The answer is yes. I may come down anyway. We'll see what happens there. Just waiting for things to stabilize so I know what's up. Okay. But in the meantime, am I going to continue with these broadcasts? Certainly. Am I going to continue with the writing? Absolutely. I finally found what I was going to do. People talk about you got to have a goal in mind. By the time you're 20, in order to get and to be successful. Okay, the reality is that that most people are in their late 40s, early 50s by the time they figure out what they want to do for a living. Okay, for me, it's simple. Okay, I think I was about 55 when it started to really hit me. But here I am at 59. There is absolutely no question. I'm going to push to get all of these books written. Every one of the ones I've got on the list. Now, today I'll be working on a number of them because I've got a whole pile that I have to pull together here. This will be in book 7, book 8. There's a bunch of stuff in here from book 12. Okay. And then this one is already labeled. What is this one from? This one looks like it's also part of book 8. So again, this is what I do is I write them down in hard copy to get the baseline down and then carry on from there. And of course, I've got all these ones down. I already showed you the stack over there. But this is, again, a question of if I can get some of you, even one of you for that matter, to take a look at the story that you've already started and put aside because somebody told you it wasn't good enough. You're not writing well enough for it to sell. There are 8 billion people and climbing on this planet. Okay, somebody out there is going to buy your book, buy your painting, buy your song. The reality is that with that many people, I was appalled years ago. Somebody came out with a TV show where the artwork was literally stickmen. Now, I'm not an artist, okay, and apparently neither was he. But it got sold because they looked at the marketing side, they figured out how to get somebody's attention, and they figured out how to make it happen. Okay, the only difference between any artist in any creative field and the people that are already at the top of the game is their experience and their marketing ability. That's it. Okay. We talk about, just to put that in perspective, you take a look at diamonds. Okay. Diamonds are extremely expensive, and yet on the global market, they are one of the most common stones available. But whoever spotted them went, and I'm talking about the wearing of them, spotted them and said, that is really neat. Let's make that a priority. Let's sell on the look. Okay. So what I'm looking at is they found a marketing tool. They found a niche, if you will, and they created it. When you take a look at the Apple computer, okay, Steve Jobs came out with this concept. This is what you require. And before he even built the thing, he was telling people, this is what you require. Okay, and I think he's passed away. But before too terribly long, he had a major empire. My goal is simple. to start with to get the Yldrbacian Chronicles written, the entire saga. Okay, because once that is written, that's the first goal. The secondary goal that kind of runs with it is getting it recognized, getting it sold. Okay, so I mean, from my standpoint, it really does boil down to how do you get this to happen? Well, the first thing you do is make absolutely certain that you are aware of what your position is. You are no worse. You're no worse of a writer, no worse of an artist. Okay. I mean, some are better than you, absolutely, but understand something here. Where it comes down to painting, for instance. Okay, you get people that paint, okay, and do phenomenal jobs. Okay, now I've already said I am not an artist. Okay, yet you take somebody like Picasso or Michelangelo, and they are absolutely mind-boggling. And yet you can go to the other end of the scale. I watched one piece of artwork go up and sold for literally, I think it was in excess of $1 million. And what this was they took a white canvas paint, white canvas, painted it with white paint. There was no pattern to it. They just painted the whole thing over, painted it with white paint, put a wood border around it. I think they put a wood border around it, but they took this canvas, a white canvas, just painted completely white. There was no pattern to it. It was just back and forth, up and down, whatever they needed to spread the paint. And they sold this. They called it Whiteout, and sold the thing for in excess of $1 million, from what I gather. Okay, the fact they sold it at all, is amazing to start with. And then there are people that will take a bucket of paint and throw it at the canvas and call that art. Now, in the strictest sense of the word, it is. And there's nothing against that. I'm more power to them. Okay. I'd love to have the marketing capacity that they have. Okay. Or that whoever they were dealing with had. That is not the way things have worked out for me thus far. And this is why I say I am not the best of the best. But I may be one of the more persistent. I don't know. I'm not going to give up until I drop dead. At that point, I'll quit writing. Rest assured. The reality that we have to look at is, if you desire your life to change, if you desire the world around you to change, you've got to start making the changes. Okay, which is why I'm looking at the stuff I'm doing now, especially with the writing and tying it together. Okay, with the people I'm talking to. I am going on to social media a little more often lately and making, and participating in it. Not because I agree with what social media is doing. Actually, it's because I don't agree with what it's doing. If we're going to make this world work, we have to start looking at it from a more positive fashion. Now, that sounds really kind of twisted when you think about it. The birth of the wolf pack is post-apocalyptic. And yet, even in that, I am turning around and working as hard as I can to draw these people, the main characters, into a situation. Yes, it's a very violent story. Okay, where they are striving to make things a better place in their local community. In the middle of this, I've even included a group of gamers, as in people playing a conglomeration of Dungeons and Dragons and various other games. Okay, that are striving to function throughout this whole situation. Okay, because ordinary people face extraordinary situations all the time. Okay, and this is what we have to realize, is this is, anybody's success even if it doesn't seem like a great big success on the individual's part, everybody's success is a big thing to them. Okay. Something I came across the other day was a realization that if you've got a young child that is really struggling with the fact that and with a situation they're dealing with, okay, when we're looking at 6, 7-year-olds, okay, maybe they're being bullied at school and they don't know how to deal with it. Or maybe they've got, and I've seen this happen as young, I've seen it actually personally happen as young as 3 years old. Maybe they've got a crush on somebody and they don't know how to deal with it. This is a massive concern to them. It's a massive stress point. And we have to realize as adults that we went through similar things. Okay. There are things I've gone through in life that were absolutely horrendously difficult for me at the time. Okay. Same as for you. You may have forgotten some of them. You may have forgotten a lot of them. Okay. But the reality of it is that when I talk about this, the whole creative side of what I'm doing, whatever you think about, whatever you focus on, this is what you are working at co-creating. And I call it co-creating because I ask for input from you guys on occasion. Okay, and this is what happens. I had a character here, this one here. Just yesterday I was on here and asked for a color. Okay, and net result, the figure took on some more color. I'll be working on more of these as well. Okay, this one here, okay, will be finished off today. I know that for a certainty. Okay, it won't take much to finish it off because I know exactly what the color coding is. So this particular character, now for those of you that play Dungeons and Dragons, this is something called an Otyug. Okay, which is a nasty little critter. Ange, how you doing? Glad you can make it. Okay, I will be finishing that one off today. That's the easy part. Matter of fact, come to think of it, I don't have a problem doing some of that right now, but when we're looking at any obstacle, it is absolutely imperative that you realize that when you're dealing with an obstacle somebody is going through, no matter what their age, my mom used to have major problems working with computers, and my older brother was an absolute whiz at them. Okay, so my mom would ask him a question. My brother would go, "Oh, it's real simple. You just do this." And of course, he'd fly through it because it was just child's play for him. And I finally looked at my mom and I said, "Mom, he is right. My brother is right. It is easy to deal with this if you are more to the point once you know how." Now, I've been working with computers since 1979. I still cannot get them to do what I'd like. Okay. But it is a major challenge for people that don't know. Where it comes to writing, I can write. I've got all 12 of my books open right now to work through. I think that's book 8, is it not? Nope, that's book 1. See, that's book 1 there. Don't need those. I look at these little pieces and try and figure out how they're all supposed to fit together. Most of them I've marked right. Sometimes I have to go through literally many of the books to find out where I put it. But when you're looking at getting anything accomplished, the more organized you are, the better off you are, the easier it's going to be to pull it together. So the other one of these things I look at, okay, is you get focused, get that idea in your mind. This is what I desire to accomplish. Once you've got that in your mind, now it's time to start taking everything that is not contributing to that success and reorganize the energy to make it actually happen in the right way. Okay, Now, for me, it really boiled down to making sure my office desk was cleared first. And this thing I keep talking to you about putting a list together for the different tasks that you've got, are absolutely critical. Okay, because you break them down into 15-minute to half-hour tasks. Now, if we take a look at this, okay, this is going to, this will take me probably half an hour per. Okay, these three here will likely take me half an hour per to get them sorted out, but I will be getting them done tonight because I've got to get them off hard copy. Now, the other part of this organization thing is this. You see that stack of, you can't see it right here. Oh, yes, you can. You see that stack with the green folder on top. That's all the hard copy I've got to go through. But, and I don't know, no, you can't see it. Doesn't look like it anyway. No, just up here, I've got another set of just to the right of the white book you see at the end there, just a little further in that direction, I've got the folder set up for moving these hard copies into their appropriate book once I finish it, like once I get them transferred. Again, it boils down to taking a look at where the energy is in your world, okay, and redirecting the energy to make sure it accomplishes what you're aiming at. It's the same as when you're striving to cook. Okay, you get the recipe out the way it was taught to me. And rest assured, I did not learn to cook well. Okay, but the way it was taught to me, when you're looking at a new recipe, get all of the ingredients out and laid out properly. Okay, measure what you can, get them laid out before, and make sure you read through the entire recipe. Okay, the same thing applies with writing. Now, I've got a 12-book saga. I know the entire storyline. Okay, but I've got all 12 books up and ready to go now. When you're doing a recipe, you lay out all the ingredients, measure what you can so it's all done, and make certain you read the entire book, the entire recipe, from the top to the bottom before starting. This gives you a solid perspective on what you're striving to build. Now, I have not talked to it, and I really should. So I think tonight what I'm likely to do while I'm doing everything else is I'm likely to turn on a podcast in the evening, okay, and listen to the way that people are talking, what they're talking about, okay, at least so I can get an understanding of how the podcasts are running properly to make them a little bit more enjoyable, a little bit more interactive. And in all fairness, I don't really know how to go about doing that too terribly much. Okay, what I do know is that these are things that I am not really strong in. Therefore, who do I have to blame? Well, frankly, I could blame the government. I could blame the elites. I could blame everybody else on the planet, or off the planet for that matter. But when you are not capable of it, when you have not figured out how to do something, it falls to you to figure out how to do it. Okay, now that means talk to people that know how to do it. Okay, now I can talk to people all I'd like about computers. Okay, and as my son found out today, I can talk to people about how to find directions. Okay, I went down to the local local mall yesterday. Now, I've been in this city for 40 years. Okay. 43 now. Okay. I've been in here a long time, 42 years. Anyway, I've been here an awful long time. This mall has been here that long. Okay, and I still got lost inside the thing. Couldn't figure out where the heck I was heading for. Now, did I go into panic? No. But some things your brain just doesn't work with. Everybody has their talents. Everybody has their strengths. Everybody's got their dreams. Okay, and when I say everybody, I mean everybody from the person living on the street all the way to the multi-billionaire. Okay, and I will tell you, all the money in the world does not eliminate the problems. It really doesn't. It'd be nice if it did, but it just does not. Okay, the one thing I did decide, I did come to the conclusion of, because I keep getting told, you've left people behind, you've moved on, but these people claim, when people claim to be family, maybe all you have to do is reach out to rekindle that connection. Well, I finally reached a point with it, and maybe it's because I'm reclusive. Maybe it's because I just got fed up with trying. But the people from my past, I reached out. I was running through a really rough time a few months back, and I reached out to virtually everybody I knew and got virtually no response. So it came to my understanding that, okay, my past I can't do a thing with. I know what happened. I do not regret my past in the least. There are a couple of things I really do regret having done. Okay, but I will deal with them. And as I've told people, the only time a secret is a secret. Everybody has them. The only time they are a secret is if they are never told to anybody. Okay, so there are things I've done in my past that, I just don't go over. I mean, we're not talking about heinous things that have been done. Like, I never killed anybody. Heck, I nearly had a coronary the day I ran over a squirrel. I swore I would never do it again. I'm like, no, I hit a squirrel just shy of 120. Right. It was fun. It was bad. I mean, it was quick. It was like bang, and the poor thing was gone. And I swore at that moment I would never hit another animal. Well, about a month later, I didn't hit another animal. I got broadsided by a Rottweiler, hard enough to cave in the whole right quarter of the front quarter panel of my car and knocked him silly. Okay, but I didn't hit him, so I was good. I did stop the car to get out and make sure he was still okay. And aside from the fact that he couldn't, walk straight, something to do with running smack into my car. Okay, and he hit the side of it, so I never ran over him. He was fine, just addled. We've all done things we do not like that we look back on and go, gee, that was really a stupid move, or gosh, I wish I hadn't done that. Okay, virtually everybody has had a relationship that they got into and went, I never should have gotten into that. I should have known better. Well, we start off by taking the whole should have thing and throw it out the window. If you got something you're not content that you feel you have done wrong, first rule of thumb, like I've done a lot of things really, really dense, and this is why I'm going back over a lot of what I'm doing with the writing. Okay, if I'd have done it more effectively when I first wrote it, I'd have been far more organized than what I currently am. Okay, I'd have been far more organized. But since I can't do there, apologizing is a good idea, and I did that. The funny part about apologizing for something that you feel was wrong, that you did wrong, or something that really threw you for a loop. Okay, and don't get me wrong, absolutely, I agree with apologizing. And I do mean that from your heart. Okay, there were many things in my childhood that caused a problem that I did, that I apologized to the people that I did it for. And the really bizarre thing of it was they didn't know it was a problem. Okay, and many times you'll find that happen where something is still bothering you. Absolutely. Lay out the situation, go, this is what happened. This is what I feel about it. This is what I'm sorry about. Okay. Many times you'll find that much as they'll look at you and go, okay, great, thanks so much. Many times you'll find that they don't actually remember things. And it's not a question of them not being important. It's a question of it didn't hit them the same way. My older brother, he made a comment to me years ago, right? And it haunted me for years. Like I was we were young teenagers at the time. He made a comment to me that really hit me backwards. He had literally told me that, that nothing I ever did would amount to anything. Now, like I said, this was done when we were teenagers. And I brought this to his attention, and I'd done it multiple times. But he always seemed to brush it off. Okay. And then one day, I brought it up again. It just came up in conversation again. Because it had been bothering me that badly. And I brought it up, and he looked at me, and he goes, look, he says, we were kids at the time. He says, I'm really sorry that you held on to it for so long. He says, I've forgotten most of the things I did when I was a kid. Right. But he says, I am absolutely sorry. I am absolutely sorry that you held it for so long. So, I mean, we patched it all together. We get along fine now. I don't see him much, but he's in another city and I'm a recluse. You figure it out. The ironic part of it is that he actually, at least from a material world, is actually in far better shape than I'm in. But the thing we have to remember, especially where it comes to the writing that I'm doing, okay, my goal is to get the story out there. Hopefully, it will generate enough of an income that it will support me in my later years. I'm not looking at retiring anytime soon, but I think it's my CPP paperwork that I got. Bearing in mind, I'm up here in Canada. How we doing, Carlito? Now, don't take this the wrong way, but I do hope you really are a tiny gray alien. But, nothing against you on the other side of that. All we have to do there, Carlito, just to let you know, I will be clear just to put this on the table for you. If you've got my Skype or my Skype, my Yahoo Messenger, my Facebook Messenger, sorry, or LinkedIn, those are the only three methods I use for communication. But absolutely, if you look at the bottom of this video, okay, if you look at the bottom of this video, you'll find all of those contacts. Pick one. As soon as I'm done with this particular video, which will be, where are we here? Oh, look at that. We've run longer than I was expecting. So I certainly won't be running it longer than an hour, but the reason being, I have to turn around. I've still got to make dinner for my son, not to mention for me. I just didn't realize we'd run this long. But absolutely, give me half an hour after I'm done this video. Okay, half an hour, 45 minutes. And I'll be up all night anyway. Feel free to drop me a line through any one of those, but it would be advisable to send a message on them to make sure that I'm sitting there, because I won't necessarily know who you are, obviously. Of course, if I know where you're from, that makes it a whole lot easier. The reason I don't recommend the phone is because I prefer seeing who I'm dealing with, which is why I pick methods that I can tell who I'm talking to. I've made the mistake of doing it on the phone before, and that's just not a good move. But that's entirely up to you. Okay. Because I take a lot of the experiences I've had. Okay, not the least of which, when I look at this is a neat setup. Okay, this particular set of story, these particular three, okay, are based on having been on. They are actually related to my actually spending time on a space station. Okay. Now, in all fairness, it was not the Mir space station. It wasn't even one of the ones from around Earth here. Okay. But it is a lot of the information is taken from the time I spent there. Now, people can call that either my imagination. That's my thought on there, Ange. I made the mistake, but no. People have told me, oh, it's just your imagination. Okay, well, if it's just my imagination and it makes for a good story, I can go with it. Okay, it's just that simple from my standpoint. Okay, so I'm looking at this whole situation going, this is the reality. Okay, this is what I've experienced. Here's the story behind it, and work from there. Now, of course, the neat part about it is it's going to be that particular section is going to be left hanging because I will be writing out the journey on his whole thing on his time on Jeremiah's time in the space station in a what do they call it? A supplemental book. Okay, to the Yldrbacian Chronicles. Okay, that'll be a while down the road though. It's just one of those things I'm working on. I haven't quite figured out, people tell me they're multitaskers. In my case, if I'm not doing 15 things at the same time, I run into a little bit of a hiccup. I think I get bored, but I'm not entirely certain. Okay, but when you're looking at any creative process, it is absolutely imperative that you really get focused on what you desire to accomplish. What are you striving to create? Now, I've got a major picture, a major storyline that is completely laid out. I know exactly how it goes here, and the sad part is I can track all the books at the same time. Okay. Take care, Ange. Hope you have a good night. I can track them. Tracking people's names, tracking where I am in a physical location, or worse, tracking time does not work well for me. Okay, it just doesn't. Okay, much as I'm still working on it. But with that in mind, where are we here? That's not bad. So, the reason I came on here was to partially get myself focused and partially talk to you, primarily, I think, talk to you about how involved the creative process can be. Okay, now with these particular books, okay, I've got those two already. I've got 10 more of this same kind of pattern. How to believe in what you're doing in a specific genre. This one, how to believe in yourself. This one, believe in your business. Okay. I am working on believe in your spirituality and believe in your success as well. Again, with simple, easily, apparently that's not going to come out, easy to implement tools. Okay. Oh, don't worry about the spelling there, Carlito. Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to see if it showed up here. Or maybe you haven't sent it yet, which is more likely. If I tag you to that. And we go refresh. But whatever you do there, Carlito, do stand. I am not here. The fact that I write does not mean... Oh, okay, there we go. It does not mean that I'm going to look at your spelling and think any less of it. As long as I can understand what the word is supposed to be. Okay, and usually I can. Don't get hung up on grammar. Don't get hung up on spelling. Okay, that's things to get hung up on when you're writing for for public consumption. Okay, you would not believe how many mistakes I make when I'm writing something. I've got an absolutely phenomenally picky editor that looks at things like address commas and extra spaces at the end of a paragraph. She is doing a staggering job on going through that and making sure it stays on top of things. Now, the other thing about getting a hold of me, okay, obviously once you've made contact, we will have to work out a time. I can tell you it will not be during a weeknight. because I work at a regular job from Monday to Friday from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. Pacific time. Okay, and it won't be Sunday mornings. During the day, during the week is fine. Saturday, most of the time on Saturday is available. Okay, but we'll work that out. All in all, we are looking at, when you're looking at creativity, and the creative side of it. Oh, there you go. Oh, you're just a little ways away. From my standpoint, it's very simple. Anything creative, anything that originates up here, which pretty much boils down to anything. Okay. When you get an idea in your mind, all the thinking in the world is great, but I will tell you, it's not until you get to this point of having that imperative, that emotional imperative, that you'll start really pushing for it, which is what has happened with my life at this point. I've gone, this is where I'm sitting and this is where I have to go. Now, speaking of having to go, I really appreciate you guys joining me. The sad part of it is I'm starting to get dizzy, which means I pushed it way too far, and I do have to go and get something to eat. So I'm going to bring this to a close, but thank you so much for joining me. I will be back again, but until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.